If you're prepping your budget for the new year, there are some numbers that you need to know.
If you feel like your money disappears faster than you can almost make it, you're not alone. A lot of people have trouble getting a handle on their finances, including how much money is coming in, how much is going out, and what the heck happens to the money in between. When Larry and I prep our budget for the new year, there are some specific numbers that we make sure that we know, and we incorporate this information in helping us to plan a budget that pretty much works for the next 12 months. And that's exactly what we'll talk about in this video. But if you don't know us, I'm Hope.
And I'm Larry.
This is Under the Median, where every week we talk about practical frugality.
The first number you need to know is your income. Knowing exactly how much money is coming in each month is the foundation for your budget.
One of the things that we've discovered in the past probably 10 years or so, I would say, is that we feel like in this day and age, it's not just about that paycheck number. People really need to look at having multiple streams of income. But when you do that, it's hard to figure out how those streams of income figure into planning your budget for the upcoming year. Let us give you some examples. Your income is going to include your basic paycheck. It's also going to include any side gigs. It may also include some money from investments, and it may also include some money from interest payments. When we looked at our interest payments over the last 12 months, and that really is basically where you need to start gathering all this information. Look at how much money came in from all the sources in the last 12 months. We figured out that we were making, just on our savings accounts and checking accounts alone, about $20 a month in interest. When you look at the number, ask yourself, how can I use that stream of income to make more? For instance, we've banked with the same bank for 36 years.
Yeah.
In fact, we had those bank accounts before we got married, so it's been a whole lot longer than 36 years.
That's right.
Our bank instituted a interest-bearing checking account. We knew nothing about it. We went to make a deposit, and the teller looked at us and said, "You know, you keep quite a bit in your checking account." We said, "Yeah, it's what we pay all of our main bills out of." And he said, "Did you know that we have an interest-bearing checking account? It'll give you 0.6% interest every month, long as you keep $2,500 in there." And we said, "We did not." You need to start with your financial institution you currently have. Ask them questions about what sort of accounts they have available that are interest-bearing accounts. You might find by just moving money around, you don't even have to change financial institutions necessarily.
Right.
By moving your money around to different accounts, you can make more interest by sticking with the bank that you're already with.
And certainly it always helps to have the stream of income of any money that you can make on the side, whether that's through Facebook market accounts or eBay or whatever you want to sell items. Some people purchase items just to fix them up a little bit and charge maybe 50, 60% more than what they paid for it to make money on them. There's all kinds of ways to help the amount of money that you're getting in that paycheck every month.
Here's a way to figure out your side income. If you have a side hustle, look at what you made in the past 12 months, divide that total by 12. That's the average amount you're making every single month. Now, let's just say what Larry suggested, selling things on the side. If you don't have any of those numbers available, I want you to go through your house, set a timer for 20 minutes. This works, trust us. And you are going to start pulling things off the shelf. Look at it critically. Have you touched it in the past 12 months? If you haven't, you maybe don't need to have it sitting on your shelf. Look at those items, put them in a pile somewhere. Look at all those items, do a little bit of research, figure out what they're worth, and then put that amount divided by 12 for about what you're going to make on side income by selling things. Is it going to be even across the board? No. It's what you're going to average. Some months it's going to be a little higher, some months it's going to be a little lower. But here's why this exercise is important. Because once it is off your shelf and in a pile, number one, you don't want to be walking around that pile for the next 12 months. Number two, you don't want to look at that pile for the next 12 months. And number three, it puts a face on what you're going to sell. And once you decide, First quarter, we're going to sell these items. Second quarter of the year, we're going to sell these items. You make a plan and you track your progress, you're far more likely to stick to it. So don't just leave them on the shelf and don't put them back on the shelf. Leave them in the pile and make sure you have a plan to sell them.
And I think, as Hope mentioned, having a plan is the most important thing.
Yep.
Because now you have a purpose. A plan gives you a purpose.
Now, if you're ready to take a deep dive into your finances in 2025, and aren't we all, and you would like to have all of our spreadsheets, our worksheets, and our forms, they're available in our Frugal Finance Planner Super Pack. Now, the Super Pack is super because we only offer it 2 times a year. The Super Pack comes with 4 high-value bonuses that we only offer, once again, as I said, twice a year. That sale is coming up next Monday. Now, if you want to keep your finger on the pulse and you want to make sure that you don't miss the sale, you want to make sure that you are on our wait list for the Super Pack. People who are on the wait list get some high-value bonuses and some additional free resources that other people aren't going to get. You get early access to the sale 24 hours ahead of time, and you get a super exclusive bonus that you only are going to get if you are on the Super Pack wait list. I'll make sure that I'll leave a link to the wait list in the description of this video.
The second number that you need to know is your expenses. And the only way you can know this for sure is to track them. You need to have a written record of how much you've spent in every category that you have in your budget. This way, you have an absolute way of knowing how much money is going out and where it's going.
Now, let's just say that you're new to this whole budgeting thing, you've never done a budget, or you'd really like to take a deep look at your expenses and you feel like, I don't feel like I have a handle on these. Easy peasy way to do, guys. You are going to grab your last 12 months of banking statements. In your mind, you're going to divide your expenses into broad categories. For instance, housing, transportation, food. And food, by the way, does include eating out. It includes restaurant expenses. You're going to divide it into those broad categories and pick a different color to represent each category. Let's just say anything related to housing, you're going to highlight with a green highlighter. Anything related to food, you're going to highlight with a yellow highlighter. It makes it so easy to look at a banking statement. Believe me, 85% of the things on that banking statement are going to be highlighted in some sort of colored marker or colored highlighter. When you see it in those broad categories, you can add them up. 12 months, divide by 12. That is the monthly average you're going to use for right now on your monthly budget. But expenses have gone up, have they not?
Yeah.
They have gone up.
Yes.
How do you know what categories you're going to add a little bit to? We generally look, because we track pretty carefully some of these marketing trends.
Look at the trends.
And food, for instance, is expected to rise somewhere, I think around 1.7% is what the USDA is saying. This, of course, as we know from past experience, depends on what you're buying. Right now, eggs, I understand, are going way up in price. You have to sort of to balance that with the things that I buy, how much are they going up in price? And you might have to add just a little bit to that. We know that insurance expenses are going up. We added 10% to our insurance category. And right now we are standing firm on those utility expenses. We are refusing at this point in our life to raise them. Instead, we are doing everything we can to stay even or lower the expenses that we are doing right now in our utility category. So, but be honest with yourself when you're looking at them.
One of the things you need to take into consideration about your expenses is that there's 2 basic kinds. There's variable expenses and there's fixed expenses. Some of your expenses are very flexible, and these are the variable ones. That would be like your food budget, your entertainment budget. You can make some definite changes to those categories. The ones that are fixed, like maybe your home mortgage or your car payment, those can be changed, but you have to do some radical things to change those. For the most part, those are fixed. The variable ones are the ones you can work with the easiest to make some changes where you might need some more income coming in from your budget.
Interesting side note. We just did a video, it's been the last couple of weeks, where we talked about lowering expenses between 10 and 20%. If you've watched it for any length of time, you know that 10%, that is our sweet spot. When we decide that we are going to lower expenses, 10% is always our goal because we've always found it to be very doable.
That's right.
And I mentioned food expenses, lowering them between 10 and 20%. And I had a lady take me to task in the comment section and said, that is the last place that you look. You never, ever start with your food budget.
No.
I don't get it. Maybe I'm missing something. Tell me in the comments section, food, the first place you look, or is that the last place you look to lower expenses? Tell me why, because for us, it's always been the first.
And some of that just might be a personal preference. We just find it easy to work with food because there's so many different things we've learned in our 35 years of marriage we can do to vary those.
All right, let's talk about the fourth number that you really need to know, and that is your spending percentages. When we told you to break your spending into overall categories, there was more than one reason for that. One, of course, was what I just shared with you. It's easy to figure out how to budget then based on larger categories.
Yeah.
But it is so insightful to figure out the total amount you're spending on housing. Housing isn't just your mortgage payment. It's also your home insurance payment. It is also your garbage fee, your utility fees. A lot of people throw their cell phone bill in there. I resisted for years, but I got to be honest, I couldn't figure out where else to put it. So I finally just threw it in with the housing category. All those combined, that is the percentage that you are spending on housing. That percentage is best at 40% or less of your total income. Why? Because otherwise it makes it so difficult to balance all the remaining categories. So make sure that the percentages that you're spending are within some natural guidelines that allow you to be able to live without feeling like the last 10 days of every month are like crunch period where you're not sure you're going to make it to the next month.
The fifth number that you need to look at is your total debt. This is how much you might owe on your house, your car, your credit cards, maybe some debts, money that you've borrowed from friends or your parents or family. These are all debt amounts that need to be addressed and looked at. The more you can pay your debt off, the more money you have in your budget to work with.
Why are these numbers so critical? Why are they so crucial? Because interest paid on debt eats away at your total finances. It eats away at your ability to plan for the future because you're stuck paying on student loans you've been paying on for the past 10 years. Having a plan, 2025 is your year. Trust us. Having a plan to pay off debt is so incredibly important moving forward. Make sure you're either using the avalanche method or you're using the debt snowball, which is the method that we used when we were paying off debt. That meant that the amount that we owed that was the smallest amount went at the top of our list, and it went down sequentially to the highest amount owed on a loan. And we paid off the small debts first and then worked our way to those larger debts.
The sixth number is your personal savings rate. This is the percentage that you're saving over your entire income. And what is really interesting about this is the average income personal savings rate for Americans is 4.4%. And that is really very low.
Why does this make a difference? Out of all the numbers that we will share with you in this video, this is the number that the fewest people know and the number that the most people should know because it is incredibly critical. This one number will change your life once you understand how much you are saving. What is personal savings rate? Let's define it real quickly. The personal savings rate is the amount that is left over after you have paid all of your bills for the month. Personal savings rate generally does include the amount that you are setting aside for retirement. What percentage of your total income are you able to save? As Larry mentioned, 4.4%. That is the average savings rate right now in the United States of America. That means that Americans are spending over 95% of their total income every month just to pay on what they owe. That is why 8 out of 10 Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Personal savings rate is also the reason that even though we were raising 4 boys on a low income, It's the reason that we had a whole lot of options, because even though our income was not very high, our personal savings rate was incredibly high given the amount of money that we were making every single month. What does this indicate? Personal savings rate is one of the single most important indicators that will tell you whether you are going to live financially free, whether you're going to pay off debt, and whether you are going to be able to retire on time or early.
That's right.
Personal savings rate, super important. Make sure you know that number. And so that we are very open about our own finances on this channel, our personal savings rate in 2024 was 55%.
I want to say one of the most important things that we did that we wish we had started sooner was saving for retirement.
Absolutely.
We didn't start that soon enough. And I think most Americans and probably most people in general don't consider this area until it's much later than they should have started. We wish we had started sooner, and we would be better off today had we started when I was in my 30s.
Although all of these numbers are super important when it comes to planning your budgeting and your savings goals for 2025. Let's just say you're watching, you're like, I get it. I need to know these numbers. I will look up these numbers, but I have no idea what changes I need to make if these numbers aren't exactly what I would like them to be. There are some small but really important changes that you can make that will help you to save more money in 2025. We did a whole video on it, and that video is right over there.